Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Sarah and Adam Show.
Whoa. New name.
Yeah, new name. Not the Adam and Sarah Show, just to be real clear. You guys can think for just a minute, reflect on why we would call it the Sarah and Adam Show as opposed to Adam and Sarah. Just think about it. So, that being said,
Mm-hmm.
that's what we're called now, apparently.
Yeah. Sass.
Yeah, yeah, like short for Saskatchewan
Yeah. Exactly like that.
or Sasquatch
Or that too. Or
or
Saskatoon.
Sith Assassin.
That works too.
There's a lot
Uh,
actually. Also short for what you do all the time.
Sass you.
Yeah, it's not really okay, but yeah. So that's the thing now. We loved Wheel of Time, still do love. I still love Wheel of Time. Sarah might not. Now that we're rebranding, she can actually tell us how much she loathed it. But we'll do that a
No.
different day.
Now I'm like I can read more of it.
Oh, you can.
Yeah.
Oh, you finished with Stormlight.
No. I mean when I'm
Oh,
done that.
yeah,
We'll
yeah,
just we'll just bounce around. It's fine.
cool. Yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we're restructuring how we do things once again, but I think this is a little bit more true to ourselves. We're going to talk about more, uh, I don't know, more topical sort of things. Maybe like we'll talk about the movies or the shows as they're coming out, but we're not going to do like an in-depth, like really close analysis run of all of them.
Right. Just kind of an overview. Hit the like the highlights, favorite moment kind of thing, if there were any.
You sound like you doubt there'll be. You're like, I could just hear you and Eeyore. You're like, which I doubt.
Oh
If there were any good highlights, which I
no.
doubt.
Man, I really did sound like that, didn't I?
You sounded exact. I I paused for a minute, waiting for the which I doubt, and you
Oh.
didn't pull through. So, anyways, you, I guess this is doomed to failure because you you don't like shows apparently.
Oh. I thought I did.
Well, you doubt that they're gonna be good, so
It'll be fine. So,
so yeah, the types of shows we're going to be covering.
mhm.
I don't think we're going to end up like. I think the general idea is kind of nerd shows, but my guess is like I don't know, like e- a lot, even just fun shows that like so nerd shows would be like Star Wars, Marvel, etc. But then
Mhm.
I don't know. You and I talked about maybe like watching The Boys, but then also reading at some point reading Sanderson's uh
Um,
Steelheart series
yep, yep.
because they're basically like they're very similar storylines, but they're written by different people, different groups,
Mhm.
and so we could compare and contrast. Like it leaves the door open to a lot more things, and we're going to talk about like trailers and news for different shows, and just generally talking about the nerd world that we live in. We probably won't hit every single corner of the like ever expanding nerd
Mhm.
domain, but I don't know. I think it seems a little bit more like us.
Are you gonna avoid the Harry Potter corner?
I don't think that exists.
That corner? Or your ability to avoid it?
The Why are we saying things like Harry Potter? What even is that?
Uh, all right. So I like this though. This is definitely gonna be more our alley.
We have an alley.
Sure. It's beside the Harry Potter corner.
Does it have shade?
Of course.
And water? I hope.
Yeah.
You know
Always
what?
water.
If you're in an alley, I guess water is usually like kind of just gross.
Yeah, you might not want it actually.
Anyways,
All right.
so yeah, but I'm excited for this new format. I think it'll be better. You guys can always come and talk to us on our. I guess we should rename our Discord server. I'm kind of sad. Like honestly, it is a little sad. Like a dagger for Sightblinder. I really like the name. I really liked like we have a cool intro. We're gonna have to record a new intro. We're gonna have to do all sorts of stuff like get a new logo, everything,
Yeah.
and reformat the whole Discord server. I'll help this time.
You'll help this time. Good. I'll make a list of what we need to do. Or you can make a
Of
list.
what we need to do. Sure. Yeah.
It'll be fine. Yeah, so we'll get all that sorted, and in the meantime we can have like a mini inaugural episode of the new format.
Yeah. So there's not any shows that we want to be watching and going over right now. I'm actually annoyed. Cassian Andor, or it's not Cassian Andor, it's called Andor from the Star Wars franchise, is supposed to be. It was originally slated for August 31st, I believe,
Right, okay.
and it's been pushed back to September.
Did they say why they pushed it back?
No,
Of course.
bag of dicks. I have no idea. I don't know if that was allowed to say either, but I said it.
Oh, I'm gonna have to double check when it's pushed back till because my calendar still says August 31st for it to start.
September 21st, I think.
That's dumb.
It's real dumb. I'm real frustrated. The good news about it is that it's going to have 3 episodes released right away.
So if they pushed it back to September 21st, September 28th is when Bad Batch starts.
Yeah.
That seems kind of silly.
Yeah. And the Rings of Power show, the Lord of the Rings show, is released sometime in September as well.
Yeah, that's September 2nd.
Oh, that's soon. It's exciting.
Yeah.
You'd think for how excited I am, I'd actually know the release date, but I don't, and I don't really feel sorry. So
Well then.
But that's the first one. We'll have a couple weeks of that before we start with the Star Wars stuff, and then we have the She-Hulk or whatever it's called.
That starts next week, actually.
Oh, does it?
Apparently. Unless it's been pushed back as well.
Oh, so we could start with that, I guess, next week or something.
I'm just going to quickly double check because, yeah, as far as I know, it's supposed to start on Wednesday, which is what, the 17th?
Oh, great. Okay, so maybe next episode we can talk about that a little bit. Nice. Okay.
Or sorry, the 18th, August 18th.
Oh, never mind. We can't talk about it.
I know.
We actually might not be able to, in fact. But that honestly, so okay, of all of those 4, so we've got Andor, Bad Batch, which is also part of the Star Wars franchise. It's animated, but it's very good, even if you're an adult.
It is, yeah, very, very good.
If you like Star Wars, yeah. So Andor and Bad Batch, just basically back to back. Rings of Power and the attorney one, the She-Hulk.
She-Hulk.
Attorney. That's what it's called, She-Hulk?
Yeah, it's called She-Hulk. She-Hulk, Attorney at Law.
Okay, because the video I'm recording later, my notes say Mrs. Hulk, but I wasn't sure what it was called.
I thought you were being facetious.
Fascist, yeah. But I knew it wasn't Mrs. Hulk. I just wasn't sure what it was. She-Hulk, okay. So out of those 4, what are you the most excited for?
Oh, man.
There is a right answer. Just kidding.
I was going to say Rings of Power. This is so tricky because it's like a dead tie between Andor and Bad Batch for me.
Nice. Okay.
Andor, I'm really excited for because Rogue One was my favorite Star Wars movie.
Yeah.
And then Bad Batch is just so good.
That's the only reason we're doing this podcast together.
Is because Bad Batch is so good.
Yeah. No, because because we both like Rogue One so much.
Yeah, it's yeah. So like when they said that they were going to do an Andor show, I was so excited because I wanted more of that. I can't wait. I hope we get K2SO in it.
They originally did sign him or something. I think so. The format for that show is actually it's interesting because so I've read a bunch of the news and stuff because I follow all the Star Wars news if I can. Like, did you know that there's actually a Kira comic series right now that's going to? I think the last episode's coming out. I think it's gonna be like her final. I think she dies in it. I'm not sure.
Really, I did not know that.
Like she just like basically she's like gonna try to kill the Emperor and Vader. I think that basically seals her fate. It's very interesting though. Like she actually steals Han Solo from Carbonite from Boba Fett before, like she tries to steal. She does steal him. She has him in her possession for a little bit, but before she can thaw him out, they get him back
Oh, I did not
in
know
the
this.
comics. Yeah, so I follow this. I follow the news because Star Wars has always been very, very foundational for me. But so the Andor show is going to be. It was originally going to be 5 seasons. It's been trimmed down to 3 seasons, which sounds like a big failure. But who knows what the real story is? Well, I'm sure some people do. They have to. But the idea though is each season is going to cover a certain time period in Cassian's life. Like,
Okay.
I mean, but it's like very segmented of like, and I forget, I'd have to look at the article again, but it's like the first one is going to cover like the first 5 years of his rebellion time, and then the next one's going to cover the next year, and then the next season is going to cover the next year or something like
Okay.
it's or it's like 2 years for the first season and then 1 and 1. I forget exactly, like 2 and 2 and 1, but one way or another, they are covering like it's all. And so my guess is like maybe Alan Tudyk is going to be like the K2SO is going to be in the next season, but we haven't seen him in any of the trailers yet, so I can't
No.
imagine like he's one of the very best parts of Rogue One.
Yes.
And most people love him, and he's one of the biggest name actors too. So you would think that they'd have him in there if he was part of it, unless he's like at the very end to get people hyped.
I wonder if like I feel like you would if you were having him come back, I feel like you would tease that in the trailer to get people excited because he is so beloved. But then do you also want to keep it a secret?
Yeah, I
You
think
know?
I think that they should just show like a Imperial intelligence droid or whatever he is, and it might not be him, but then it adds speculation.
Right. You just don't know. Oh man.
Other characters we haven't seen though, like Orson Krennic is not in there, but he could be in there.
There's just there's so much room for potential. I do like though, it sounds like they have like a story arc in mind, which is one of the things that I really like when we get these like Star Wars shows. And Star Wars in particular I think is very good at it, where when you're watching a TV show and they hit like the 5th season or the 6th season, you're like, this should have ended 2 seasons ago. Like it's just been dragged on and they don't really have an arc anymore.
Yeah, but then you're like, for me, I'm always like, well, if it's worth watching this many seasons, I would love to, even if it's just dribble, I'd rather just cling on to them, keep going. You're right, though. You're right. There's a lot of shows like that.
I am the same way, where I'm like, well, I've started it, I need to finish it, type of thing.
But I'll miss them. I just want to hang out with them.
But it sounds like they've got a really good, not a really good necessarily, but it sounds like they have an idea of the arc that they want to follow, and that kind of structure usually comes across really well on screen. Good.
Awesome.
So, yeah. What are you most excited for out of those four? Because I realize I just rambled my answer.
Oh, you're good. Uh, I thought we were just talking about Andor now, but I mean, so I'll just say the one I'm my most least excited for is the woman Hulk, She Hulk.
That's
I
my
don't know.
least
I
excited one too.
I think I'm sounding like slightly sexist here. I don't. I'm not trying to denigrate, like the fact that she's a woman. I just it, I watched the previews and
Mm-hmm.
they just I was like they might be okay. It might be fine. Like I didn't like the Hawkeye trailers either, but and I know
Mm-hmm.
you don't like Hawkeye, but I did like Hawkeye quite a bit. I really enjoyed it. In
Mm-hmm.
fact, it was I don't know why, but that was one of my very favorites of the new Marvel ones, which I like a lot of the Marvel shows, but that uh yeah, I the trailer just didn't grip me.
It
And
didn't
so
grab you.
I have trouble feeling excited about it. I'm like, oh, she's green sometimes. That's cool. But she's still gonna try to live her like lawyer life. Or she's
I
gonna like I,
I am intrigued. So it is my least excited one as well, but I am intrigued by it only because the actress, I've seen her in other things, is a very phenomenal actress.
good. Awesome. I want to watch sorry. I do want to watch it too, but I want
Mm-hmm.
to like it. I just I can't feel excited about something if
Yeah.
they don't provide the right things to make me excited. Like, and I can't even feed them. I can't even just be like, "Here's what you should do to make me excited about this," because I don't know enough about the storyline. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's kind of billing itself as it's supposed to be more comedy
Mm-hmm.
ish. It seems like
Yeah. I mean, I feel like Marvel tends to walk that line in general.
they do a great job. Actually, like they
Mm-hmm.
do a good. Like you're in like this crazy, like really tricky situation, and they come out with some absurd line, and you're like, "That was really funny."
Yeah,
Like
yeah. No, they
they do a
do
good
do a
job.
very good job at it. Um, did you ever watch the Orphan Black series?
No, I actually had it in my Amazon shopping cart for a while, but I never pulled the
So,
trigger.
so the actress in She-Hulk, it was in. She's the main actress for Orphan Black,
Yeah.
and the generalized timeline without me, or summary, I guess, without me spoiling it, is that they're clones, and she
That
does
doesn't spoil it.
no, you realize
Okay.
it like pretty much instantaneously, but she does a phenomenal job of acting out all of these characters that are all extremely different. So
Is it kind of like the clones in Star Wars where they'll have the same voice, but they're all like one's a cowboy and one of them's a
no, like they just all look the same. They all have completely different personalities, completely different voices. Like
oh okay.
it's very well done, and she's very good at it.
She does all of them.
Yeah, she does all of them, and it's. I don't want to spoil it. There is something that she does, and if you're gonna watch it, I don't want to spoil it. There's something that she does in particular that just, to me, like sells her as an actress, which is why I am intrigued that she's in She-Hulk, because I've
Hmm.
seen her act in Orphan Black already, and I know what she's capable of from there.
You know what this did?
What?
It didn't hype me for She-Hulk at all.
I hyped
It
you
made
for
me want to
Orphan Black.
watch. It made me want to watch Orphan Black. Yeah.
I did the opposite of what we should have done. Oh man. But
Let's
the
just blow off She-Hulk and watch Orphan Black.
oh man. So that's the only reason really why I am intrigued. And also like I do like to watch the Marvel shows anyway, so I will watch it.
Yeah, I like to keep up with them so far. It's an interesting situation. We're talking in I forget what I think it was just the Multiverse of Madness when we were doing our recap or reaction to it. Like I was like, well, why don't they call the Avengers? And you're like, well, what Avengers would they call? And I've been thinking about that, and I think you're right. Like they basically just killed all the Avengers. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's like Hulk, but otherwise everyone's just like off world or doing their own thing,
Mm-hmm.
and or dead or old or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you think that you could call like the Hawk guy
The
or
Hawkeye.
whatever, the Falcon.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think you could call him maybe, but I wouldn't really trust the Falcon to go in and take out Wanda. So, anyways,
Definitely
I
not.
so yeah, like they're kind of in this weird situation where there's all these superhero movies and superhero things going on, and yet yeah, there's not like I'm interested to see where they're steering things,
Yeah.
and I'm curious to know if the She-Hulk show is actually going to help explain that, or if it's just going to be like this really weird, like, okay, so now there's a superhero lawyer. That's cool.
Right. See, that's actually a really good point because I thought that they were going the way of introducing new Avengers, where you have like we've got Miss Marvel being introduced, and obviously you have Captain Marvel still, but there were just all of these other like little characters being introduced in all of the series that it seemed like they were pulling into that direction. That I don't know if She-Hulk. Obviously we'll find out when we watch it. Will go that way, or if it will be
Hmm.
exactly what you said, where it's just a you know what's the term I'm looking for? Origin story for her.
Yeah. So I've had this thing lately. So like okay, I liked the Hawkeye show, the Christmas thing. I thought that was just a lot of fun for whatever reason, and it kind of just introduced like, okay, hey, there's this new Archer girl who's going to kind of be part of things in the future, I guess. But I've been like, besides that, like since that one and on, I've had this question of so what,
Right.
because okay, so Hawkeye, like we get introduced to like and they are going to have I forget what his name is, like that big guy that like he was supposed to Kingpin, is that his name?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like he's going to be part of, like he was apparently a bigger villain than it showed in that show, but like so we saw him and we were introduced to some new characters, and that's great and everything. And before that show we had Loki, which absolutely like continued on the storyline. It's like that's
Mm-hmm.
almost like the main storyline. Loki was a big deal for that. We had the Captain, you know, whatever it's called, Winter Soldier, and the Falcon,
Yep.
and that was really fun. And Enfys Nest, and they were able to, like, they continued the storyline of like, okay, here's where those heroes are going to be. And before that it was Wanda, which she, that actually directly played into, or WandaVision played directly into Multiverse of Madness. But
Mm-hmm.
other so we had those three that happened all in a row, and then the Hawkeye one was kind of like, hey, we got new characters, and it's a beloved character anyways, like the actor. And then we had Moon Knight,
Yeah.
and it's like the end. And I've had a lot of people who tell me that I'm crazy for not liking it, and I'm like, I just, you're gonna have to sell me more than just telling me I'm crazy.
I didn't like
But
it either.
there was Moon Knight, and at the end I'm like, so what? So they did those things, and we're supposed to be like excited for the next season, I guess. So
Mm-hmm.
even if I was excited for that season, how does that play into the greater like Marvel Cinematic Universe? And beyond that,
Mm-hmm.
then we had the Miss Marvel, which I'm like, okay, that's cool, but so she's just gonna like go to college or something next? Like, what's gonna happen? I don't. So what? Like, it was a fun story. I ended up liking it a lot more than I thought,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know how it contributes. And now we have She-Hulk, and she's like, I'm gonna be an attorney. That's what the
That's
I'm
what.
green. I'm green. I can my body's changed. Like I'm going through puberty a second time. Like, okay, cool.
Oh man.
Like, what? Why should I care? Why should I care? Like, what do they contribute?
Um well, and it's funny that you say that because it feels like so you had like you said, Loki continued the story a little bit, and Wanda directly fed into Doctor Strange, and then you have these other shows where you're kind of like, what are they doing with these new characters? But then we also have in the fall, well, I guess like late fall, early winter, Black Panther 2 is supposed to come out,
Mm-hmm.
and they're going to introduce Ironheart in that. So you have another new character coming in. So it's kind of like,
Oh,
are all of these characters coming in to replace what we had before? Like it's a whole new era.
well, Doctor Strange jumped into some portal with some random girl
Right.
at the end of that movie, and I'm fine with it. I think I don't know. The She-Hulk is gonna have to work the hardest for me to care because, like the Andor show
Mm-hmm.
could be about whatever. Like I want it to be in that era, and I want that gritty. Like are the rebels actually the kind of terrorists, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of thing. Like exploring that line of where do you cross? Like how far is too far to really fight for the thing that you love the most? Like uh, I don't really care if it's just filler. Like we already know the rebellion eventually forms. Like there's not much mystery. Cassian eventually just dies in the movie. Like in like there
Right.
we're gonna be like, wow, what a fantastic hero, he's dead. Just blew him up, you
Right.
know?
We know what happens. We know his fate.
Yeah, like there's not we know the fate of all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Like comic books actually showed, the intelligence officer who tells him to like kill Jin's father and stuff, like
Mm-hmm.
behind, he's like, oh yeah, well, I know you're supposed to, we said we're supposed to like capture him, just kill him. And Cassian's like, yeah, okay, I'll kill him. And then he does it, blah blah blah. Sorry if I'm spoiling Rogue One for everyone, but shame on you if you haven't watched it yet. And but that guy's fate was actually in a comic book
Mm-hmm. So
because Vader killed him.
you learn all of
But
these.
well, I mean, he's just like a minor character, so I don't care. But
Fair.
anyways, I'm all over the place right now. I guess at the end of the day, though, I don't. She-Hulk, I care about way less because there's already a million superheroes,
Right.
right? Like I don't need like, hey, like let's get a like. I guess I'd watch a show of like I really have enjoyed. I was gonna say, and next we're gonna get a woman Captain America, but we totally did kind of
We
get
kind
one.
of did.
But like, or a man, let's get a man Captain Marvel. You
Right.
know what I'm saying? Like we don't just need like an opposite gender of every superhero.
Mm-hmm.
Like let's get a female Thor. Oh, geez, there's so like that's what they're
Well,
doing.
I mean, you kind of
Okay,
you kind of do get that as well.
I know.
uh,
Okay, well, I'll just stop listing things. But that's really funny, actually. They are kind of doing it, but I don't feel like we need it that much. I
mhm.
guess so.
We'll just see what it does, what
And
it's like.
and I hope I love it.
Yeah, for sure. That's the goal.
Hmm.
So.
Okay, so She-Hulk, we kind of finished talking about that.
Mhm.
So what things it appeal to you about the Andor show? Like what makes you interested in that?
So like obviously the biggest thing for me is because I liked Rogue One so much. I like being able to see more characters from that. So getting a show based off of Cassian's life and whatever his time in the rebellion,
Hmm.
whatever the timeline is going to be, is probably the most appealing to me. Like I want to see that character. I don't want to call it character development, but it's like a background,
Yeah.
I guess.
No, I think you're right. I think so. People say like, well, there wasn't any character development in Rogue One. No one. We don't care about Cassian, and in a way that I guess I can understand that.
Mhm.
I did like that's part of the appeal to me though is finding out like because he has that moment with Jin where she's like, like, you don't get to just explain away things, and he's like, no, I earned the place I'm at. Like, I had to go through hell, basically.
Right.
Like, you can't just tell me that. Like, you can't just wish away whatever. Like, you can't just explain it. Like, you have no idea what you're talking about. And you could tell he felt that he had earned it. Whether or not he has, who knows, but like, he owned it. He was just like, no, I've done terrible things for the rebel. Like, this means everything to me. You can't just like waltz in and be like, I'm a rebel now.
Right.
you know
Right. And then, yeah, and that's exactly it, where we get to theoretically see that background now.
right. Yeah, like, he hinted at something that's a lot deeper than we kind of saw in the movies.
So I think that's probably the most exciting thing.
Mm-hmm.
And just overall, like, I feel like the Star Wars shows have been so well done that I just get excited for them. Like, I just assume that they're going to be really good and fun.
Yeah, it's fun that you have that point of view. Like, no one hates Star Wars as well as Star Wars fans.
I know, which is kind
You
of
know,
sad.
well, it's a bummer when I'm like, okay, so a bunch of people who have similar backgrounds with Star Wars, kind of, like people who have likely read some of the books, or like, I can't expect most people are going to have gotten as in depth to Star Wars as I have. That's fine, but at the same time, like, that's why I would want to. I can't just go to some random. I can't be at work and be like, hey, has anyone watched the latest? People are like, oh yeah, I like the Mandalorian. I'm like, oh yeah, did you see such and such? Like, I don't know about that. I don't care. Like, that's too in depth for me.
Right.
Like, and like, guaranteed, like the organization I work at, there's like 800 people in close proximity to each other. I guarantee I'm by far the biggest Star Wars fan. Like, there's probably no one I could even talk to about it. So you go onto the forums, or on some place where people congregate, and the fans, you're like, hey, look, there's people who know about as much as I do. Some people know way more than I do. Let's talk about it. And they're like, I hate the shows. I'm like, screw you, man. Like, I enjoyed the show so much, but it's like the cool thing to hate on them. So I'm glad that, like, there are some issues, certainly. Like, the Book of Boba Fett had some there's some why questions there. Like,
For sure.
I don't know why we needed it. It was kind of fun, but
I just look at it all as it's more content to consume in that universe. And if you don't like it, then just don't watch it. Just watch something else. Because there's just so much. Like, you have all the movies, you have all the shows, you've got comics, you've got books, you have all this content that you can consume, that you can just choose a different storyline.
Yeah, yeah, totally. I agree. So, you know, I'm not above criticizing some of the Star Wars stuff, but in general, I'm right there with you. Like, I really enjoyed the Obi-Wan show. And the thing is, a lot of the Star Wars fans have their axes to go. Like, they want to be like, man, I hated the sequel so much. I hated him so much. I hated him so much. I need to make sure everyone knows it. So I'm gonna be a grump about anything sequel related. Oh, really? There's some element from Episode 7 involved in this show. I'm gonna hate this show. Sucks. I already hate it. Please, like, don't. I'm gonna watch it so I can point at everything I hate. Like, this isn't hyperbole. I read these things. Like, I follow some of these sites, and I'm like, this is so dumb. And that, like, everyone gets on, they're like, yeah, totally, sure. Like, her lipstick was too bright. You're like, this is what we're talking about. Like, just the stupidest stuff. So, yeah, I don't know. I won't say I'm that guy. I just call it like it is, because those guys are the most annoying people in the world, almost. But like, I don't know. You've known me long enough. I'm always like trying to be as objective as I can.
Yeah, like, you're gonna have criticisms. I think for me, I didn't I didn't grow up attached to Star Wars. right? So it wasn't a huge foundational thing for me, so that when I did enter Star Wars, I was so late to it that I just consumed the content at face value.
Mm,
And then,
it's good.
so now I just continue to consume the content at face value, which means that I miss a lot of like little intricacies because I haven't read all of the books and I haven't read the comics. So there's massive holes in my knowledge in the universe. So people can pick up on that and then critique something because it goes against whatever they read in this book, and it, you know, doesn't match the storyline now and all of this stuff, and I just go along with it. I follow the bouncing ball.
The bouncing dot. Self-proclaimed dot expert here, guys. That's Sarah. So, anyways, it's a debate we've had from other mediums. So, anyways, the thing I'm most excited about, actually. So I like the idea of they're gonna have to make me like Cassian. Like I liked him fine. I so okay. I guess there's two threads that I want to discuss. So first off, Cassian, I'm not the most excited about that. I'm very interested to see how this is going to play out, because if you think about it, okay, so if you talk about it from a character development standpoint, Rogue One was the end. That's the culmination of everything. So if you look at what he is in Rogue One, and you're like, oh my gosh, like, okay, like this guy, I mean, he did a lot of heroic things, like kind of without thinking, because that's who he had become. And presumably we're going to see him develop into the pinnacle that is Rogue One Cassian.
Right. So you're not going to see Rogue One Cassian at the very start.
Right. Like, hopefully he'll be likable, but like he wasn't necessarily likable right off the bat anyways in Rogue One. Like,
Right.
out of all of them, he's not funny. He's got almost not, like, he's serious, he's to the point, he's got his good points, he's got his good qualities, but like K2 is funny, Jin you can relate more to, she's the main character, so whatever. But Cassian, he's kind of like the glue, like he's the guy who just like makes sure everything happens. He's the reliable one though, and so I'm very interested to see how that all plays out. Like, how likable will he be? So there's that. But then the thing I'm the most excited about, and I hope they really mess with it a lot, is I want to see what it's like in the Imperial Senate and Mon Mothma.
That's a good point. Yeah.
And I want to see Mon Mothma and Saw Gerrera start working together and then break up, because Saw Gerrera is more okay with terrorist kind of things.
Right. And Mon Mothma's not.
She's more idealized, yeah. But like, and then we can also see what it's like for Mon Mothma to break off from the Imperial Senate and eventually leave to go join. Like, there's actually some books that deal with some of this stuff where Mon Mothma is leaving the Senate and stuff. But I'd love to see some of that stuff played out in it. Like, there's canon books that show Mon Mothma leaving, but I would love to see it on screen.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's just going to be really good.
I think so. Oh, and then Bad Batch. So
Bad Batch.
Yeah, I'm excited. So the first thing I noticed, I'll want to ask you what the first thing you noticed in just a sec. The first thing I noticed was Omega is considerably older. She has longer hair, and she looks, instead of like a 10-year-old shooting, like I don't know how old she is.
Right.
Frankly, I'm not, but she looks like she's very clearly a teenager now.
Yeah, I agree with that. She does.
So that's the first thing I noticed. I don't know that that's the most intriguing thing. I also, everyone hates her accent so much. I just want to say real quick that I don't hate it.
You don't hate it? I don't hate it.
Okay, good. It's an Omega accent hate-free zone.
Yeah, I mean, like, when you think about it, how many characters are there in Star Wars? And they all have different accents.
Yeah, like who cares if like I hate Greedo's accent.
Like,
Like what?
yeah.
Who cares? Who cares? But for some reason they people want to hate it. That's fine. You guys can let us know on the Discord server if you hate it. You can join the Discord server in the show notes
Hmm.
below. But
Um, so I noticed that she looked different. I don't know if it clicked with me that she necessarily looked older right away, but I did notice. I was like, she had like they changed her look basically. Um, this is gonna sound so weird. The first thing I noticed was the music.
okay.
Like it just the music in the trailer for Bad Batch just got me so amped for the season, which
Awesome.
is obviously what it's supposed to do. Like it just
Mhm.
felt so intense, and the whole time I was watching it, I was like, "Oh, this is gonna be so good. There's just gonna be so much going on," and which is clearly what they're trying to do: build the drama and the suspense, and go from
Oh
there.
no. I've said it a ton of times that like you can have a good movie or a show, I guess,
Hmm.
but I think of it in terms of movies. Like you can have a good movie without a great soundtrack. You can't have a great movie without a great soundtrack.
Right.
Like the soundtrack is an essential part of it, and so that's cool. You notice the music first.
Hmm. And like obviously, like the music that's in the trailer is made for the trailer, but still,
Okay, I was going to be a kind of a buzzkill of so I'm glad I was able to see a little past it. Like uh, the music can get you hyped regardless.
right.
I just remember what was it? I think it was episode 7
Hmm.
where the first few trailers, like back when Star Wars was just being like revitalized by Disney. You know,
Hmm.
they bought it, and the first few trailers, and people are like, "Oh my gosh, this music is amazing,"
Right.
and it was. And someone pointed out, they're like, "This was actually all music that was just like composed by the like ad company."
Right.
And it was certainly not nothing like John Williams does not claim any part of it. Like inspired by John Williams, yes.
Right.
Actually like composed by John Williams in the movie, almost certainly not.
Right. Yeah. Well, exactly. Right. So it's going to be probably different, but I don't know. It still gives you that like for
Mm-hmm.
me, like it still has that effect where
Yeah.
like I was watching the trailer again, like just before we started recording, I watched it again, and I immediately just got so attached to this show, and I like immediately was just like, I can't wait to watch this. It's gonna be so good, because partly because of the music.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm right there with you. I mean, if I I I think it's really interesting because Star Wars like this, there's going to be like John Williams is in his 90s now. Like he's almost done with composing Star Wars things.
Right.
If we're just being realistic, you know, and like his newer stuff is just not as powerful as the older stuff, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But there's such a solid groundwork of really awesome Star Wars music that I feel like that's going to be a really nice like it'll be a nice crutch for Disney to lean on
Mm-hmm.
moving forward because I don't know like they don't have to create new iconic stuff like they already have iconic stuff and they just have to vary it a little bit.
Right. Yeah. Um. Yeah. It's gonna be interesting, but um, I think the thing, and you kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, the thing that I really like about Bad Batch is you think that it's going to be a very like kiddie show,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't come across that way at all.
Oh, but it's approachable to kids. Both my
Mm-hmm.
8-year-old and my 4-year-old both really enjoyed the heck out of the first season.
Right, but it doesn't come across as like being dumbed down. Like I feel like not to knock it, but I feel like the Resistance show was more of a like
Oh
dumbed
man.
down, aimed at kids show.
Oh man, I hated it. Like the wacky hijinks of just like bumbling, clumsy calves. Yeah, I hated it. It was so cringe. Ugh.
But like you don't get that vibe at all in Bad Batch.
No, like my kids love everything Wrecker does and says.
Mm-hmm.
They think he's so funny. And I'm like, sometimes I think he's funny. And a lot of times I'm like, he's just kind of an over the top musclehead. Like he's fine.
Mm-hmm.
I like him as a character, but yeah, he's but my boys are always just like, it's Wrecker. You know, both of them just think he's so funny. Because he's always like, oh yeah. I well, and I think for kids, it's probably because his emotions are so easy to read, and
Right.
kids aren't like they're not as good at that yet.
Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense. So you can just follow the like mood of the show based off what Wrecker is doing.
Yeah, and they both really liked Omega too.
Mm-hmm.
Like they were always like, why is Omega not here? Like, what's Omega doing? What's Omega like?
Mm-hmm.
And even though they're boys, and they don't necessarily like they're not that they don't really care about like what the little girl is doing necessarily, but they care about what the kid is doing. Like,
Right.
oh, this is a Sarah situation where she's like part of their family. Like, why aren't they taking care of her? Like, what, like that? And so a lot of people who hate Omega in like adults, I
Mm-hmm.
get it. You don't have to like her, but and you don't have to like her accent for that matter. But uh, at the end of the day, like it does appeal to kids,
Mm-hmm.
you know. But if you're an adult and you hate Omega, there are several other Bad Batch characters to like. So
Mm-hmm. That is a good point.
yeah, the trailer has Cody in it as well.
Yeah, you pointed that out earlier,
Yeah,
which is interesting.
yeah, we get to see what Cody's doing. Because he tried to kill Kenobi,
Mm-hmm.
which isn't really his fault.
Right. So will he have that chip taken out?
I
Who
think that
knows?
they actually showed some of his fate in some other medium. I don't remember exactly.
If they did, I don't remember it.
It might have been like a comic book. I don't know. I've always found that time period really interesting where the Empire decides to transition away from the clones and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, so here's something interesting. Like so in the old canon, there with the old Thrawn series, that there's like this secret installation called Mount Tantus, and it's where the so back then they didn't know what happened in episodes 1, 2, and 3. Like they wrote the book before that, just everything based off of the original trilogy.
Oh, okay.
Like they didn't have the prequel trilogy yet
Mm-hmm.
when these books were written, and so there are references in the original trilogies to it during the Clone Wars. Like when Obi-Wan and Anakin interacted
Yeah.
and stuff. I knew your father during the Clone Wars, etc. But they didn't really know. They knew clones were involved, but there was no information
Mm-hmm.
about them. Like so, Mount Tantus was the place that the Emperor had stored all of his cloning facilities,
Oh, okay.
and it was like this top secret thing. Like that was where the research for it was going, and there was a bunch of like that's where his like secret research installation was. And so eventually Thrawn, so Grand Admiral Thrawn in these books is the main character, like main villain kind
Mm-hmm.
of. And so he finds them and he's going to make this big army of clones, and it's totally different than what ends up happening in the stuff. And that's why these books are all non-canon, because they just totally contradict like even the old stuff. But what I just recently found out though was that the big complex that they were in toward the end of the first episode of Bad, or the first season of Bad Batch, and the place that, like, you remember, so they killed a bunch of the Kaminoans,
Mm-hmm.
but then a few of them they're like, hey, we're going to use you to research for us.
Right,
Like we
right.
have uses for you. That they're going into Mount Tantus. Like that's Mount Tantus. Like that's
Ew. Interesting.
so. And the fact that they like that cloners are in there doing research
Mm-hmm.
about clones, it touches on the heart of the old storyline without, like, it can't adopt the full thing, of course,
Right.
but it's just cool. I was like, oh, they rescued Mount Tantus from like it wasn't canon. Now it's canon.
Yeah, they bring in all of these. Well, and it's funny that you say that because I feel like a few of the Star Wars shows have done that where they've brought in
Hmm.
little things where you're like, oh, this is canon now.
Well, like Thrawn, for instance. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So
yeah, it's exciting.
yeah, those are gonna be really good shows, both of them, Andor and Bad Batch, I think.
Yeah, agreed.
Cool.
Bad Batch and or what?
And or
She-Hulk. Oh, Bad Batch and or She-Hulk. It sounds like you're saying and or
It
and
does.
slash or. It's wonderful, delightful.
Do you want to talk about Rings of Power?
I mean, I want to. I don't know how you feel about it, but I'm excited for it.
I'm excited for it. I think it's gonna be really good.
I think I'm more excited about that than the other three.
I assumed this would be your top pick.
So, yeah, I mean, Star Wars. I liked Star Wars before I liked Lord of the Rings, but that's just because I could watch the movies before I could read. Like I read all the books and stuff multiple times in high school. Loved The Hobbit and the original three. Read the Silmarillion. I've read a bunch of the other material. I've been doing a lot of research lately. This show looks really good, really appealing.
It's going to be interesting because you have all this knowledge of Lord of the Rings, and I have the knowledge of the movies and The Hobbit. I did read The Hobbit, but did not read the Lord of the Rings books. And
Oh, the books are so similar to the movies. It's wonderful.
which is great to know because I always feel like a little bit guilty when I haven't read the book of something that like a movie is based off of. Because usually the movie is drastically different from the book, or there are things that have been cut out that are important, or whatever. So it's nice to know
Yeah.
that might not be the case in this scenario.
That's what made the movie so amazing is that they had to change some significant things that you just have to, like,
Right.
you can't, even though they made the movies really long and they did a really good job on a ton of stuff, you just can't fit 3 full books into just 3 movies. That's.
Right.
So they had to but they stayed so perfectly within the spirit of the books. Like, it felt like the books would be like, you know what, not bad. Like, that was a pretty good imitation of what we are. Like, the books would have approved, I feel like, as opposed
Right.
to other ones. You're like, you have a character named the same thing and that's it. Like, that was
Yeah.
that was horrifying. Like, in what world is that the book? You tried to make a movie on it and that's not the book. Like, this was so lovingly crafted. The movies were that's why they're so magical in a lot of ways, I think, to me.
Right. So I feel like we're going in to this show with I mean, we are definitely going in with different knowledge levels, which is just going to be interesting because
Sure.
I'm curious. I'm curious how they will handle that for the show because I'm assuming that the show is going to attract a lot of people who did like the movies but haven't read the books. People like me, basically, who don't have all of that knowledge. And is it going to be like an overwhelming thing in the show, or how are they going to weave that through to make it relatable, which is going to be interesting to see. And then, I mean, just like flat out from the trailers, all of it looks amazing. Like the scenery and the sets and just everything looks so, like, you can tell that they had a massive budget for this show.
Oh yeah, the budget is ludicrous.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
like you can see it very evidently.
$1 billion. Yeah.
Like
Like,
it
literally $1 billion.
it is there on the screen for you to see. Which honestly, like, I remember watching the first, I think it was the teaser trailer, and I just saw the scenery and I was like, whoa, like, this looks stunning.
So I don't know as much about their creation of this show yet. I mean, I followed some of the news, but I know that some of it, at least maybe all of it, was filmed in New Zealand,
Like
just like the movies.
so similar scenery anyway when you're in the same area. Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of interesting things. So the thing is, this is a different group of, like, the rights to this show are total, like, they don't have the rights to anything in the movies.
Right.
And so it's a very interesting thing. Like at the end, I'm sure you noticed there's the Balrog who roar, and so that's, but it's like a spinning image of what the Balrog looked like in the movies, and that's not really how, like, that's a pretty unique look. For, like, the movies weren't just like, hey, this is basically what everyone says the Balrog looks like no one could agree. Like if you look at fan art for Balrogs from people who just read the books and don't care about the movies, like they vary widely.
Right.
And so it's going to be interesting to see if they actually are able to, like, it almost hints that maybe there could be a shared aesthetic, like there's some kind of legal agreement. I don't know what would be required for that,
Okay.
but like, because otherwise, like the orcs, if you look at their costuming and stuff, they do look pretty different from the orcs in
Right.
the movies. And that's fine. I mean, it's a different age. Like they're gonna have different things, factors. But I'm very curious to see how much of their aesthetic they're gonna share. Like one really interesting thing. So in the movies, there's the Mines of Moria
Okay.
that they go through, and it's this deserted ancient dwarf citadel that's delved deep in the mountains. So there's that. But in the show, that it's called Moria in the movies. In the show, it's called Casa Doom, and it's referenced in the movies but it's called Casa Doom, and the dwarves live there
Right.
because the show is in the second age. Like it's like 3,000 years before the movies, and so we get to go into Casa Doom. Like, how similar are the two gonna look?
That's a good point. I didn't think of that because I mean, I wasn't even thinking about the fact that the rights would be different. So, that's going to
Yeah,
be
it's
that's going to be interesting to see.
I yeah. There's a ton of stuff. I mean, I guess just to set it up for people who aren't familiar with it, the way Tolkien works, so it's basically broken into three ages, basically, like, and the Lord of the Rings stuff is all at the end of the third age.
Right.
So it already, I mean, this is like 10,000 years into the world that he's created. So like the first age, it's like the creation of the world, this creation of demigods. There's one of them who goes rogue. He starts a big mess. The elves and men are created. They go to war with this guy, and it's this huge mess. Eventually, the other demigods have to come in and rescue the men and elves because they're just getting destroyed. But this guy, the bad guy, Melkor, is the guy who like created the Balrogs. He's the one who created the dragons. He's the guy who he created the orcs from elves. He tortured a bunch of elves and created orcs from them. Like he's the unspeakable evil, and Sauron is his henchman. That's in the first stage. So the other demigods, the Valar, they're called, go in and take him out after 40 years. The War of Wrath. It's like 40 years of crazy warfare between demigods, and then the men who helped the good guy demigods are eventually added to an islet. Like they're given an island off of the coast, and it's like this paradise island, and they're given long life, they're given all this stuff, and eventually those guys are the descendant of those guys is eventually Aragorn in the third age.
Right. Okay.
But this is the age though where Sauron is like he creates the rings of power,
Okay. Yeah.
and he gives them to ensnare all the different humans, and the elves and the dwarves. and it's that story of his interactions with them, and of the Numenorians. The thing that's really interesting is it's like a 3,000 year age, and they're gonna compress it all apparently into one show where the actors are all the same, so all the humans,
Mm-hmm.
everything, like it can't be much more than, you know, like 100 years like it can't bridge much more than that. Even though it's like the downfall of this great kingdom that takes 3,000 years to finally fall, etc.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know how they're going to do that.
Yeah, I think that's gonna be interesting. I mean, it looked like in the trailer, in the latest trailer, that they were trying to portray time passing. Like that's how it looked to me. I could be completely wrong because again, I lack the knowledge here. But my instinct upon watching it was, okay, so you kind of have this like start of the age or of the timeline that they're going to be in, and it looked like they were portraying years going forward. So whether it's like 5 years or 15 years or however many, so I wonder how they will do that as well, especially because like you said, when you are factoring in humans, like you're not going to have the same actor 300 years later that's a human.
Well, yeah, for the most part.
Right.
So the Numenorians, the long-lived humans,
Mm-hmm.
they'll live about that long. But you're right. I mean, sorry, I don't mean to just apparently I do mean to nitpick. So. but like
I
that's a
arbitrarily
huge,
picked a number, but you know
right.
what I mean.
Yes, yeah, and that's what I'm trying to halt that. I'm just like, I know what she means, but she was wrong about this one little tiny detail. Really foolish of me. But yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, and that's a big factor. Actually, is the growing resentment in the state. This has to take centuries over time of these long-lived humans are still resentful of the fact that the elves can live forever.
Mm-hmm.
Like the humans become obsessed with death and trying to stay alive longer, and
Right.
like it drives them to some really foolish things, which sets the stage for all the different things that happen in the second age.
Right. It'll be interesting. I also think it's just an interesting angle to have the show start in the second age and not the first age.
Well, yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of references to the first age, though, which I'm excited for.
Mm-hmm. It just
But,
seems like I don't know if it was a strategic choice to like start it in the middle of the story.
well, so the way the rights were marketed,
Mm-hmm.
like apparently they were just going to take all rights off the market for a really long time, and everyone is just going to get like just hunkering down for like a long winter of no Tolkien content whatsoever. The
Ah.
Tolkien estate was just going to say like nothing's available, no one can make any shows or movies about anything. But then randomly, the way the article I read about it kind of portrayed it was like, but they did just one final thing, and they started this bidding war. They marketed a show that people could run, so not a movie or a movie series, it had to be a show
Mm-hmm.
that was that took place in the second age.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so it's like the Tolkien estate
Yeah,
offering this specific era up.
mm-hmm. Yeah,
Interesting.
so that the and it started a big bidding war apparently between like Netflix
Mm-hmm.
and Netflix and obviously Prime, and then some other one of the other big ones. I forget which one, but maybe it was HBO. I don't know. Like they all
Maybe.
wanted it, but the richest guy ended up getting it. So
Mm-hmm. It's probably gonna pay off.
I don't know. I have no idea. What I really hope is that I really hope that they don't add like a lot of modern politics stuff to it.
Right. And they
You
kind of
know,
stay true to like the original like the themes that are in Lord of the
yeah.
Rings.
Yeah, exactly. I really hope that.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, like man, there's I have like a million things I want to talk about this show, but like I think we're gonna see Ents in
Mm-hmm.
it because
I
the Ents
love
are
the
around.
ends.
Yeah, they like Treebeard could easily be alive during
Mm-hmm.
this time period. We're gonna see one of the contentious parts elements is, and one of the things that like no one can hate Lord of the Rings as much as Lord of the Rings fans. Like this is a good, like people are like, we already hate this show because it has the Harfoots, which are like hobbits.
Right.
But there's very specific things that are said in some of the books that are like hobbits never did anything big. Like they never took the forefront in anything until like the Hobbit happened, basically. Like,
Right.
and so the fact that they're around shouldn't surprise anyone, but there's no canon like there's no reason to think that the hobbits, the Harfoots, which are a type, they're like a sect of hobbits, they've
Mm-hmm.
already there's no reason to think that they're going to be doing anything. They shouldn't be doing anything of importance if they follow the canon really closely.
Right.
But the showrunners were like, well, we can't imagine a Lord of the Rings show without hobbits.
Right.
So
Need to have them in.
I mean, I think as a marketing ploy, so the people who just the people who are really hard on the canon are they're like, these showrunners don't know anything. They're not keeping within the spirit of the Tolkien, whatever. And I'm just like, you know what? There's also nothing in canon that says that they can't have some Harfoots to kind of just experience. Like, why can't we just experience the Second Age
Mm-hmm.
through there? Like, they're like, oh man, this is a mess, you know? Like,
Right. They don't necessarily need to do anything large that contributes.
yeah, like that they could do things behind the scenes that no one realized how important they were.
Right.
Like, I feel like there's a lot of wiggle room if you want to get creative. And I for one, I'm like, you know what? Just keep within the spirit of the stories, but
Right.
you can just because someone didn't write, like there's been a very like the only person who's written anything in that land is Tolkien, or a little bit his son.
Right.
And his son is old, like really old now,
Mm-hmm.
too. So, like, I think he's done, in fact, with writing. Like, I think just because those two people didn't say anything, like, there's still a huge. We don't know anything about dwarves,
Right.
hardly anything. So, you know, but just add some stuff. I don't care.
Gotta let it see what the actual storyline is and what's in there before getting your pitchfork.
Yeah, I mean, getting a pitchfork is fun though, so I can understand.
It is.
I can't. I've never been a pitchfork guy. I'm
Uh,
always just like, you know what? I'll get a pitchfork. Like, I'll usually I just leave it with disgust if I don't like something. I'm just like, oh, okay, I'm done.
yeah.
Pitchforks are like for people who are outraged over things that they shouldn't be outraged about in general.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I see it. I'm like, if you're done, if you hate this, just let it go.
Just be done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Plenty of other cool things. Anyways, we've probably gone. I've ranted too long. I ended up talking like almost like 90% of the time today, and I'm sorry about that.
No, you're good. You're good. This is gonna be. I'm excited to see this because, or actually, I'm excited to talk to you about these shows because I think we're gonna have different perspectives.
Oh yeah, well we certainly will. Like
Mm-hmm.
I love all the old Star Wars stuff and the new Star Wars stuff. A lot of it's really cool. And yeah, I'm really good with those are the, I mean, these are the two shows that and I guess Wheel of Time, like those are the ones that I would know the most about. Like,
Yeah, and I'm just gonna follow the bouncing ball.
yeah, we need a Harry Potter show that you
We
can be
do.
the subject matter expert on,
We do.
or a Gilmore Girls in Middle Earth.
It could happen.
I wouldn't watch it.
She does in one episode sleep with someone dressed as a Wookiee.
Who's she? The older or the younger one?
The younger one.
Was the older one okay with that?
Well, it happens in the revival episode, so it's been several years
The revive. Oh, like when they
when they had their little Netflix special.
was that a movie or was that a full show?
It was 4 episodes, which were basically like mini movies.
Was it good?
Yes and no.
Okay. Well, thank you for all that information. Okay. Yeah, we could talk about Gilmore Girls a different time,
Yeah.
guys.
We'll keep it to Star Wars and Marvel and Lord of the Rings. Maybe
For
some,
now.
maybe some Harry. Wheel of Time.
Some Harry Wheel of Time.
Yeah.
I don't know why else you'd use the word Harry.
Sad.
I'm kidding. No, I haven't watched the last two movies, so I'm sure that those will be good.
Sure.
Yeah, I'll watch those sometime.
All right. That's it then, I guess.
Yeah, stay tuned for the next one, whenever it is. I'm going now. I bid you all a very fond farewell. Goodbye.